Hi, welcome back to Venture Recaps. Today I will recap the movie King Kong. In a city, individuals engage in a variety of activities. The cast members in the dressing room, including Ann Darrow, discuss a play. When Ann arrives at the theater the following day, it is permanently locked, and the crew members are waiting outside of their luggage. Their careers as actors appear to be coming to an end. They eventually go their separate ways. Ann decides to pursue her career and is persistent to get part in a play as she convinces Mr. Weston to employ her. He tells her no slot is available, but gives her an address to a place where she might be able to make money by showcasing her body. Filmmaker Carl Denham is pictured in the studio addressing his stockholders and outlining his new movie plan. When they consider whether to support his new scheme, they ask him to excuse them. He overhears their discussions and, realizing that they might interfere with his plans, rushes out with Preston while carrying the camera. The shareholders pursue them but couldn't meet up because they boarded a cab and drove away. Preston tells Carl that their female actor, Maureen, withdrew from the project as they discuss preparations for the upcoming film in the taxi. He goes to a place where he might get a girl to replace Maureen. As he sets to enter, he sees Ann through the glass door. Ann was standing at the front as she contemplates entering there, and after a while she walks away. She steals an apple from a store, but Carl pops out of nowhere to save her. Carl takes Ann to eat and tells her about his plan to shoot a movie in Singapore. He convinces her to star in his movie. She rejects at first, but later accepts as he mentions a name she's familiar with. Ann, Preston, and Carl board the ship that is intended to transport them to Singapore. Captain Engelhorn refuses to let them in, but after Carl offers him money, he reluctantly concedes. To keep Ann from changing her mind, Carl hides all these obstacles from her. In the ship, Jack Driscoll, a scriptwriter, gives Carl some scripts and tries to leave the ship before it sails. But Carl delays him, and Jack couldn't leave the ship anymore because it had moved from shore. Carl introduces her to the crew and she meets Jack finally. Jack and Carl start writing the movie script. Jimmy, a ship attendant, overhears their talk. Filming finally starts on the ship and Ann is nervous as she acts. While operating the camera, Carl cites Jimmy saying something to Captain Ben Hayes, a trained sailor and a mentor to Jimmy. Ann had a little chat with Jack when they cross paths. Filming continues, and as Ann continues acting, she turns to see Jack looking at her. She becomes distracted and both stare at themselves affectionately. Captain Hayes, Jimmy, and some others confront Carl, and he finally confesses that they are going to Skull Island as opposed to Singapore. They warn him about the monstrous beast behind the wall in Skull Island. The potential that they won't return is also mentioned, but Carl ignored their caution. Ann and Jack end up kissing after Jack shows her the script he wrote for her. Captains Engelhorn and Hayes start to turn around and head back home. When Carl challenges them from the cockpit, Captain Engelhorn reveals that they were made aware of the warrant for Carl's arrest. Carl tries to buy him off, but he rejects it. As they try to turn the ship, they realize that they got closer to a wall. With fear in their hearts, they kept trying to turn the ship, but instead, they got closer to Skull Island. After forcefully maneuvering through several big rocks, the ship hits one of the biggest rocks and it starts leaking. Carl takes pictures of the island with his camera. He and his crew gets off the ship and sail in a boat as they move towards the island. They enter the location and proceed to explore the scary surroundings as they notice numerous skulls. When they turn to look, they discover an ugly girl standing in a corner making strange noises. Ann implores them to return, but Carl declines. Carl approaches the girl and forcefully hands her chocolate. He is bit by the girl as she tries to escape his hold. They discover many of her kind around the area, and as they observe them, one of the crew members, Mike, is stabbed in the back with a stick and Ann screams. These ugly humans begin to attack the crew who were helpless. Captain Engelhorn comes into the scene and fires a shot at one of these creatures. This scares the creatures away and they run back to their caves. The captain and some other armed men from the ship surround the area and they take Carl and his crew back to the ship. The ship starts to sink as they sail away, so they lighten it by discarding the bulky equipment. Ann is taken hostage by the creatures after they break into the ship and transport her back to the island. Jack notices Ann is missing and runs to alert the captain. They return to the island to save Ann after arming themselves with powerful weapons. The creatures prepare Ann for sacrifice. They tie her to a tall stick and throw her toward the forest as they rejoice. A giant ape picks her up from the stick. It hears gun sounds and runs into the forest with Ann in its hand. Carl sights the ape but says nothing to the others. They head to the forest to look for Ann. Carl carries his camera into the forest. A wild, enormous animal emerges as they enter the forest and charges at them. They fight with it for a while before shooting it to death. Carl never stops recording or snapping pictures. Ann cries out while struggling in the ape's grasp. She uses the sticks that had been put on her neck to pierce its hand, and when it felt the pain, it threw her to the ground. When it hears noises, it picks her up from the ground once more and flees. They try to find Carl to ask him where the creature might have gone after Jack notices a huge footprint, but Carl is nowhere to be found. Carl, in the meantime, encounters enormous dinosaurs while seeking a better vantage point for his photography. In order to prove that he was the one who shot the photo, he instructs one of his crew members to approach the animals closer. Everyone starts to flee as other wild animals start chasing the dinosaurs. Albert, a member of Carl's crew, was killed when one of these beasts attacked him. Anne pretends to be dead when the ape taps her to see if she is still alive. Captain Hayes, Jack, Jimmy, and a small group of other people, along with Carl and his remaining crew, were left when Captain Englehorn and a few others withdrew. Anne tries to escape the monkey by crawling, but it catches her and obstructs her path. She gets up and tries to take a close look. As it observes, she starts to dance and display. Every time she tries to rise up, it uses its fingers to force her to the ground, and it seems to love doing it. The ape repeatedly laughs and beats its chest. Anne yelled for it to stop since the ape's play was making her feel weak. While pounding its chest, it growls violently and starts tossing the rocks around. She keeps a watchful eye. It ultimately calms down and walks away, giving the actress an opportunity to escape. As the crew sails through a mysterious waterway searching for Anne, they are attacked by giant scorpions from the water. After some time, the scorpions flood at the sound of an ominous sound. A pteranodon, a dangerous fish, shakes their boat. Jack finds himself at the river's bottom, where he witnesses the creature devouring one of the crew members. Later, Jack is able to swim to dry land with the surviving crew members. Despite the danger they are facing, the ambitious Carl keeps the camera rolling, capturing the scene when the pteranodon devours another crewman. Soon, the group reaches a log bridge that leads to a mysterious cave where Kong is. As the people eventually locate the ape, Captain Hayes fires at it, but the ape throws him away, ending his life. Where the others were standing, the gorilla rattles the stick, causing the others to fall to their deaths. As the ape turns the log over, Carl drops his camera and gets stuck on a branch. Carl, Jack, Jimmy, Lumpy, and the others are able to hold tightly to the branches as the log falls. However, when the log bridge gets stuck, the group falls into an insect pit. Meanwhile, Anne hears a sound from a distance and runs in the direction, screaming for help. She gets to the source of the sound and sees a wild animal feeding on a fallen creature. She sneaks away but meets another wild giant animal in front. She hides in a hole and the animal couldn't get inside and so walks away instead. But just when she thinks she's safe, she sees a megapede above her. When Anne crawls out of the log, V-Rex, which devoured the photodon, chases her. She screams and the ape pops out to rescue her. The ape fights for a while with two animals, trying everything possible to save Anne. After successfully killing the two animals, Kong is left to face the final V-Rex. The ape ends the dinosaur's life by stretching its mouth open and breaking its jaws. Anne is amazed that the ape saved her and she runs to meet it. It puts her on its shoulders and walks through the forest. Meanwhile, in the pit, Jack wakes up and throws a flare at the mysterious insects to scare them off. He approaches the frightened Jimmy, who mourns for Hayes. Carl, on the other hand, awakens but is devastated to find his camera broken. They become aware of the presence of numerous carnictus. A Wetarex sneaks up behind him. When Jack tries to help him get it off, the other Wetarex ends up crawling on the screenwriter's body. Lumpy uses a mass shake to attack the carnictus, but the creatures end up swallowing his limbs and his head, ending his life. Enraged, Carl uses his gun to fight the Wetarex. Meanwhile, Jimmy loads his machine gun and shoots at the Wetarex wrapped around Jack. Just as the crew is overwhelmed by the insects, Englehorn, Baxter, and other crewmen arrive to help them. As the people go back to the ship, Jack refuses to give up on his search for Anne. Carl convinces the captain to catch the ape alive. When Jack finally meets Anne, she is already asleep in the ape's arms. They reach out to hold each other when he awakens her up and instructs her to keep quiet. The ape starts growling and suddenly becomes awake, grabbing Anne. The ape fights off huge bats that have come to attack. It lets go of Anne and continues fighting with the bats. Jack grabs Anne and hugs her. They make an effort to lead together as they descend the rope with Anne riding on Jack's back. While the bats attack them, the ape pulls the rope up. As one of the bats came close, Jack grabs its wings and they flew away with the bat. The ape growls angrily as it watches them go. The ape chases after them as they flee after falling into the water in the forest. They headed straight for Skull Island. They yell for the others to release the bridge so they can cross. The others prepare to trap the ape. Jack and Anne finally reach the others, but Anne notices their plan. The ape jumps in and they capture it. Anne screams for them to stop, but Jack holds her. They throw chloroform toward the ape to make it weak and put it to sleep. Anne struggles to stop them from trapping the ape, but Jack takes her away instead. The ape sees that Anne is taken away and it angrily frees itself from the ropes on its body. Growling loudly, it flings the trappers away. The captain screams at them to kill the ape, but Carl stops them. The ape chases after them as they flee. As they sail away in their boats, it grabs one of the boats and scatters it. Ann begs the captain to withdraw, but he fired an arrow at the ape's right leg. Carl beckons for the captain to stop as he prepares to fire another arrow, and Carl tosses a bottle of chloroform across the ape's face. The ape stretches its hand toward Ann and sags as it drifts off to sleep. Ann sobs. Carl approaches the ape and refers to it as King Kong, the eighth wonder of the world. Back in the city, the citizens dress up and move excitedly to go and see King Kong. Ann stares sadly at the mirror in the dressing room. The hall is packed with a lot of people, including the press. Jack goes to look for Ann. Carl appears on stage and tells the audience the tale of their journey. He mentions that the pursuit of a gigantic beast resulted in the loss of 17 lives. A beast that was seduced by the beauty of a girl. The audience enthusiastically applauded as he revealed the ape in chains. Dancers perform when the show commences in front of the ape, now called King Kong. The ape looks at Ann with excitement as Carl welcomes her, but is saddened to see someone else posing as Ann. Jack discovers Ann's refusal to take the role in the show while he is currently at the King Kong show. At the Deluxe Theater, Ann was dancing. Jack observes the ape become enraged and attempt to break free. Despite Jack's best efforts to send them out, the crowd refused to go. When the ape is finally set free, it storms the hall looking for Ann, scooping up every woman it sees but tossing her away when it realizes she is not Ann. The ape bursts out onto the road and scatters automobiles as Jack flees the room. When Jack gets in a car and heads in the direction of the ape, the animal spots him and pursues him as lures it toward the theater where Ann was performing. As he approaches the theater, the ape rams into his car, causing him to pass out. Ann is approaching the ape as it turns, it happily picks her up and takes her to play in the snow. Suddenly, armed soldiers begin to shoot the ape and it runs to climb to the top of the highest building. Ann screams at them to stop the shooting. At the top of the building, he watches the sunset with Ann. Soon, helicopters with armed men hover around the top of the building. King Kong drops Ann at a safe place and growls at the men. They start shooting and it climbs to the highest top and stands facing the sun, beating its chest and trying to grab the helicopters. Ann climbs a ladder to meet it. She hugs it and they stare at each other. They keep shooting the ape and it starts getting weak. Ann cries as she watches it fall. She turns to see Jack, who had climbed up the building to meet her. He hugs her tightly. People gathered around to see and take pictures of the dead King Kong. Carl comes to the scene and as he stares at the ape. Thank you for watching. Feel free to like and share the video. Hit subscribe for more.